The ink is barely dry on a historic peace deal, yet tens of thousands of troops are still standing by, literally ready for war. Welcome to the 60-day ticking clock. In this explainer of the source material, we're unpacking the immense, real-time geopolitical stakes of the brand new US-Iran agreement. It is a highly volatile situation that blends high-stakes diplomacy with intense, nail-biting military suspense.
When you glance at the headlines, you might think, okay, great, the crisis is entirely resolved, right? A memorandum is signed, extending a ceasefire and opening up this critical 60-day negotiating window. But before you breathe a sigh of relief, let's look at the reality actually holding the line on the ground. Because the physical situation tells a story of deep, lingering caution. 50,000. That is the number of U.S. troops staying right where they are in the Middle East, ready for war. The Pentagon is not packing up and going home just because a preliminary framework got agreed upon. This massive deployment is a glaring, unavoidable reminder that while diplomats are busy talking, the military is maintaining a watchful, heavily armed perimeter.
So let's dive right into the deal and the deep distrust driving all of this. While the official memorandum has indeed been signed by top leaders on both sides, specifically U.S. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, make no mistake, this is far from a finalized treaty of friendship. It's a probationary framework. It's a starting line, not a finish line. And the statements coming out of Washington and Tehran right now could not be more contradictory.
There is a massive, immediate disconnect in trust here. On the U.S. side, White House officials are emphatically insisting that exactly $0 of unfrozen assets have been released and that any relief has to be strictly earned. But on the flip side, Iranian state-linked media is claiming this paves the way for a massive $24 billion in frozen funds and broader economic relief. It is a striking contradiction that perfectly captures the profound lack of trust defining this fragile window.
And that underlying distrust perfectly explains why those 50,000 troops are staying put.
When the two sides fundamentally disagree on the financial realities of a deal they quite literally just signed, you absolutely do not lower your defenses. A senior U.S. official recently confirmed this to reporters, stating very plainly, the plan is to keep the current force posture during the 60-day negotiations. The administration is making it incredibly clear that a signature on a piece of paper does not equal a withdrawal. They hope to draw troops down eventually, but only upon the agreement of a final, fully verified deal. Until then, the perimeter holds.
The crucial takeaway here is that the Pentagon is maintaining one of its largest regional force concentrations in more than 20 years, just in case diplomacy completely fails. We're talking about roughly 50,000 troops deployed across the Middle East. Furthermore, public fleet tracking data shows at least 2 incredibly powerful carrier strike groups remaining right there in the region. They are built for weeks of sustained warfare, and they are positioned to strike if these negotiations collapse. Now, let's pivot to the immediate, high-stakes prize of this agreement, reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
While the overarching nuclear questions loom large, the most immediate, economically significant effect of this memorandum is happening right out on the water. If you want to understand global economics, you have to understand the Strait of Hormuz. It's a narrow, highly strategic maritime choke point that connects the energy producers of the Middle East to a deeply hungry global market. When this strait is threatened, the entire global economy shudders.
The math behind this is just staggering. Roughly 1/5 of the entire world's oil and liquefied natural gas shipments pass through this exact body of water. Imagine 20% of the world's vital energy supply relying on an ocean that is currently at the absolute center of a military standoff.
This agreement tackles that crisis head-on. The memorandum demands the naval blockade be lifted and the strait be opened. Crucially, the agreement requires the waterway to remain entirely toll-free during these 60 days of negotiation. This acts as a massive, much-needed relief valve for a nervous global energy market. Because of these exact stipulations, shipping traffic is expected to increase significantly over the coming days.
But remember, this relief valve is strictly temporary. Let's look closely at this 60-day ticking clock.
The clock is ticking, and the pressure is immense. As any security analyst would tell you, nobody is taking a victory lap right now. Instead, we are looking at a highly volatile 60-day ticking clock, where every single move is heavily scrutinized. Day 1 was just getting the ceasefire memorandum signed, but days 2 through 59, that's where the real work happens. It is a strict period of performance and verification. The U.S. administration has emphasized they're in the very early stages of building trust, and absolutely everything hinges on what happens before the deadline on day 60. Economic concessions are not just going to be handed out freely. They have to be earned step by step through strict, verifiable performance. U.S. officials are demanding verifiable proof that Iran is not rebuilding its nuclear program. They are demanding confirmed curbs on support for terrorism and regional instability. As one official noted, they might make small gestures in the beginning, but only if Iran makes small gestures in return. It's a highly choreographed dance of compliance. And how this dance plays out leads to huge impacts on global oil and shipping. This high-wire act of diplomacy has immediate, cascading effects on the global economy. What happens in those negotiating rooms directly impacts the logistics of global trade and the price of the resources we use every single day. The ultimate goal here is stabilization. As one U.S. official plainly put it, if they're willing to behave like a normal country, then we're willing to treat them like a normal country. That normalization is the key to unlocking the economic gridlock that has paralyzed the region and spooked international markets. But let's be realistic about the physical timeline for a second. Even with a deal signed, the physical logistics of clearing naval mines from the water and convincing massive commercial cargo ships that it's actually safe to travel is going to take time. You can sign a paper in an afternoon, but safely clearing military explosives from a vital shipping lane takes meticulous work. White House officials themselves are openly cautioning that bringing commercial shipping back to normal levels could take days or even weeks, as these companies slowly regain confidence in the route.
Traders, however, are already betting on a peaceful resolution, causing an immediate drop in global oil prices. The mere prospect of renewed traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has reverberated globally. The market is aggressively pricing in the hope that one of the world's most vital energy choke points is finally returning to normal operations. So with 50,000 heavily armed troops watching the clock, the entire world is waiting to see what happens when the 60 days run out. We have a fragile framework, fundamentally opposing views on the financial terms, and the largest military posture we've seen in the Middle East in 20 years just standing by. Will this 60-day window yield a verifiable, lasting peace? Or will the underlying distrust trigger a rapid return to the absolute brink of war? The countdown has officially started. What do you think happens when time runs out?